Most men over 40 don't realize this until it's almost too late. The very thing that makes you feel invisible might be the exact thing that makes you attractive. And no, it's not your money, it's not your car, and it's definitely not because younger women suddenly stopped noticing younger men. In fact, what I'm about to tell you has very little to do with age itself, because some 25-year-old men have it, and some 55-year-old men never develop it. Yet it's one of the most powerful qualities a man can possess. And later in this video, I'll reveal the one trait that younger women consistently notice in older men, even when they don't realize they're noticing it. But first, we need to talk about something nobody discusses, because this isn't really a video about women. It's a video about what happens to a man when life finally forces him to grow. And that changes everything. Nobody talks about what really happens to a man after 40. The world sees your responsibilities, but very few people see your burden. You wake up, go to work, pay bills, solve problems, handle stress, take care of everyone else's emergencies, and somehow you're expected to carry all of it quietly. Many men spend decades being needed without ever feeling understood. You become the provider, the fixer, the protector, the dependable one. But somewhere along the way, you stop feeling seen. Maybe your marriage became routine. Maybe the conversations got shorter. Maybe the appreciation disappeared. Maybe you're divorced. Maybe you're sleeping alone. Maybe you're surrounded by people and still feel lonely. Because loneliness isn't about being alone. It's about feeling emotionally invisible. And here's the painful part. Many men spend years building a life while forgetting to build themselves. The dreams get postponed. The passions get buried. The excitement fades. And one day you look in the mirror and think, when did I become this person? That question is uncomfortable because for the first time in years, you're forced to meet yourself. Not your job title, not your income, not your role. You. And that moment changes a man. A few years ago, a man in his late 40s sat alone in a coffee shop. Nothing remarkable about him. No designer clothes, no flashy watch, no luxury car outside. Just a normal man reading a book. At the next table sat a younger woman, maybe late 20s. She kept glancing over. Not because he was trying to get attention. Actually, the opposite. He wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't checking his phone every 30 seconds. He wasn't seeking validation. He looked comfortable, present, grounded, certain. And that's when something interesting happens. Because confidence without performance is rare, especially today. Which brings us back to the question this video promised to answer. Why would a younger woman choose an older man when younger options are everywhere? The answer isn't age. It's psychology. Most people assume attraction is about appearance. But if that were true, every relationship would look very different. Here's what many younger women quietly describe. They're exhausted. Exhausted by games, mixed signals, attention-seeking, endless social media competition, people performing versions of themselves, people pretending, people chasing approval. And then they meet a man who's comfortable in his own skin, a man who doesn't need to prove he's important. And suddenly, something feels different. Because emotional certainty feels safe. And human beings are naturally drawn toward emotional certainty, especially during uncertain times. That's why confidence often beats appearance. That's why stability often beats excitement. That's why maturity often beats charm. And before someone says, so younger women just like older men? No, that's not what we're saying. Many older men are deeply attractive. Many younger men are incredibly unattractive. The difference isn't age. The difference is development. Remember the trait I mentioned earlier? The one younger women consistently notice? Here it is. Presence. Not performance. Presence. A man who listens fully. A man who isn't desperate. A man who isn't constantly seeking approval. A man who can sit in silence without feeling uncomfortable. A man who knows who he is. Presence has become rare because modern life trains people to be distracted. But presence makes people feel valued. And when someone feels valued around you, they remember you. Here's a painful truth. Many men become more attractive after 40, yet feel less attractive than ever. Think about that. The man who has accumulated wisdom questions his worth. The man who survived decades of pressure doubts himself. The man who became stronger feels weaker. Why? Because aging creates psychological conflict. You gain experience, but notice physical changes. You gain perspective, but become aware of time. You gain wisdom, but lose youthful certainty. And suddenly every gray hair feels louder. Every ache feels significant. Every birthday feels like a reminder. But here's what many men misunderstand. People aren't attracted to youth nearly as much as they're attracted to life force, energy, purpose, direction, curiosity. A man who still has a mission. A man who still has standards. A man who hasn't quit on himself. That energy is magnetic. At 25, at 45, at 65, it doesn't matter. Because purpose is attractive, and purposelessness is visible.
Imagine two men. Both are 48, same age, same city, same income. The first man spends every day trying to prove he's still young. He's chasing validation, obsessed with what people think, competing with younger men, trying to relive his 20s. The second man accepts reality. He trains, learns, builds, creates, reads, grows. He respects himself. Which man do you think people are naturally drawn toward? Which man do you trust? Which man seems stronger? The answer has nothing to do with age. Everything has to do with identity. There's another reason attraction sometimes shifts toward mature men. Security. Not financial security. Psychological security. A mature man often knows what he values, what he believes, what he will tolerate, what he won't. He doesn't constantly change himself to fit into every room. That emotional stability creates trust. And trust creates attraction. This is why the most attractive older men are rarely obsessed with attracting women. They're busy building meaningful lives, improving their health, developing skills, leading projects, creating businesses, learning new things, living fully. People notice that, not just women. Everyone notices it, because attention naturally moves toward purpose.
But here's where many men misunderstand everything. They hear some younger women find older men attractive and immediately turn it into a mission. They start chasing validation, trying to prove they're still desirable, trying to win a competition nobody asked them to enter. That path usually ends badly, because desperation destroys attraction. The strongest man in the room is often the least needy, the least reactive, the least dependent on approval. So ask yourself this: are you trying to attract someone, or are you trying to escape loneliness? Those are very different things. Many men aren't searching for romance. They're searching for significance. They're searching for connection. They're searching for proof that they still matter. And that's where bad decisions begin. Because validation feels good, but purpose lasts longer. One man reached 50 and decided his life was over. Another reached 50 and decided his life was beginning. The first man focused on everything he lost. The second focused on everything he still could become. 5 years later, their lives looked completely different. Not because one was luckier, not because one looked younger, because one continued growing. Growth changes everything. And that's the real lesson here. The men who age best are rarely the men trying to stay young. They're the men continuing to evolve.
So what should a man actually do after 40? Start by rebuilding respect. Not from others, from yourself. Take care of your body. Walk more. Lift weights. Sleep better. Eat better. Move with intention. Not because you're trying to look 25, because strength changes psychology. Then rebuild your mind. Read. Learn. Develop skills. Stay curious. A stagnant mind ages faster than a body. Then rebuild your purpose. Ask yourself, what am I building? What am I becoming? What excites me? What would I regret never pursuing? Because too many men stop dreaming after 40. They survive, but they stop living. And survival is not enough. Create goals that belong to you. Not society, Not your boss. Not anybody else. You. The biggest mistake men make after 40 is believing their best years are behind them. The truth is often the opposite. Your 20s gave you energy. Your 30s gave you responsibility. But your 40s can give you something far more valuable. Wisdom, clarity, purpose, freedom, and real confidence. Not the confidence that comes from attention, the confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Because the most attractive thing about a man isn't his age. It isn't his appearance. It isn't his status. It's his presence, his purpose, his peace. And in a world full of noise, a man who possesses those qualities becomes impossible to ignore. So tell me in the comments, what has life taught you after 40 that you wish you knew at 25?
Because chances are, another man reading your answer needs to hear it. If you believe men deserve better conversations about aging, purpose, and mental health, give this video a like. And if you're committed to becoming stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled after 40, subscribe to The Second Prime. You're always welcome here. And remember this, a strong man is not the man who refuses to age. A strong man is the one who grows stronger because he did.